Edge cannot be yet another investment, yet another infrastructure thing, yet another this, disconnected from those types of efforts. If everything's virtualized up anyway, and even 5G is going to be basically a containerized network function sitting on something like a Kubernetes cluster, right, there must be something else we can use that for other than just that.
"5G networks are coming soon, and with that change, the world's wireless networks are going to be more advanced than ever. In that process, developers need the resources to build tomorrow's internet." That's exactly what I spoke with CEO Jason Hoffman about. He leads a company called MobiledgeX, and they're building tomorrow's internet. Jason Hoffman, first of all, what is MobiledgeX?
Oh, I mean, from a company perspective, we're a relatively new company that's a wholly owned subsidiary of Deutsche Telekom. And our focus is on developer-facing edge services and everything that's needed from an edge perspective as we're leading up to 5G.
And what interested you? You came from the cloud side of computing. What interested you in coming to MobiledgeX?
We're all end users of mobile and mobility, right? We all use smartphones. And when you look at as people that make products, in general, anytime you have something that can be mobile, wireless, cordless, hands-free, it tends to be attractive, right? And when we look at mobile networks themselves, I mean, they're sitting between devices and, very often these large clouds. And how we put things on large clouds and how we put things on devices are relatively straightforward. But then the question of what should the mobile network be doing that's more than networking, as it's in between these two types of things, to either enable entirely new things on devices or entirely new devices for people, requires that sort of combination of really a lot of cloud becoming edge cloud and how it's working together with mobile networks.
Who is edge computing actually for?
Oh, well, that's a good question, because on one hand, when you talk to somebody, say in the large public cloud space, edge computing is this, we're distributing more of these micro data centers out closer to the device and so on like that. But if you go on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, if you're somebody who's making a device, whether it's drones or cars or a smartphone, then to you, edge is really the aggregation or a collection of a lot of those devices, right? And then if you're sitting inside of like a telecom or mobile operator, edge is this thing that you're maybe running your radio VNFs on, talking to your new sort of like base stations that you're getting. But if we look at like who it's fundamentally going to be for, at least for a lot of these edge services that have to come out first, it's going to have to be for these developers and engineers that are building all of these new applications and new capabilities and new devices. If we're going to start doing that incremental type adoption and having people sort of build on top of it. So the edge is very much for the builders and for the people that are then creating these types of things on top of there.
Is that the reason MobiledgeX is targeting, you were very specific in saying developer-focused edge resources?
Correct, yeah, absolutely.
What about, when we're developing 5G networks, everyone's talking about the applications that are going to be running. What do 5G networks create for operators in terms of, do they create architectural or computing problems? Yeah,
because I mean, there's in the 5G, there's the 5G aspect to it. There's also sort of the broader frequency aspect to it, right? In the sense of building radio coverage for something that's at, say, 600, 700 megahertz is totally different than 5 gigahertz. It's totally different than 28. Sort of gigahertz. And so the reality is even a lot of the 5G rollouts that are going to be happening now are largely going to be meshed into existing LTE networks on existing LTE cores. So in a way, that sort of 5G meshes that'll be showing up is really just a bandwidth extension of existing LTE. And this is one of the big problems facing the industry is as you get sort of higher up in these frequencies and you require these denser rollouts in that. Right. Those are expensive, and so you have to start thinking about why do it and exactly would be on it, and it's probably not to deliver just sort of a better YouTube or Netflix experience to somebody who's currently on a smartphone, because that's sort of okay right now, and it's not like it's needed to go ahead and make a phone call.
Right.
or send somebody a message. And so when you start looking at a lot more of these mixed reality type experiences and things that are much more collaborative and social and multiplayer, whatever you want to call it, that type of thing where many of us are using a smartphone as both a window to this mixed reality world, but also one that we're sharing with other people at the same time, that requires some of the aspects of 5G beyond sort of just high bandwidth. It requires some of the more sort of interesting ones. So I think for us, step one is to take one of the most popular smartphones, where everyone tends to be looking down like this and doing, single person things on it, to make everybody, stand up like this a little bit, and, use it so that the group of us are actually playing the same thing, looking at the same thing, doing the same thing, showing something to, somebody else. Those are going to require, a few edge services for that to be possible. It's going to require some of the early aspects of 5G, but we can start making some of those types of incremental changes and justify other stuff to happen. And I think if we can just pull that off over the next year or two, then we'll sort of see what's next.
Does that necessitate new devices and new device opportunities as well? Because I'm thinking once you bring that phone up and start interacting and becoming more social, and the network accommodates that, well, why use the phone at all? Why not take those functions and move them around to other things?
Well, because I think that the phone's still largely a good thing to like type on. Sure. It's a good thing to still sort of do emails. It's a good thing to do something quietly on. It's still a good something to read on. The reality is something the size of a smartphone or a Kindle or an iPad or the like. It's good to read on. Every time people have done some variation of glasses or smart glasses or glasses add-on where the use case they were showing people was text messaging or reading email or reading a website, then they end up in these funny situations where they're on the other side of somebody's glasses.
Yeah.
Where you're using glasses for a reason, and as you get older and older, like myself, one reason is to read. So, there isn't necessarily a good thing there. But if we can sit down and say, okay, we're taking some of these types of single player, non-collaborative, or I'm just here in my phone like this, and I sort of come up.
Right.
We'll hold our phone up to take a video for 30 seconds or
Sure.
take a picture.
Yeah.
But we're not going to do that for minutes to hours. So naturally, we want that to be hands-free. And so if we sit there and say, well, how do we make that hands-free? How do we put it back in the pocket? Then the experience can move to glasses. But then the experience that should move to glasses is not the things that should stay on the phone, like being a phone and being your email and these things. What should move to there is just sort of the mixed reality type part. What moves to there is the fact there's a digital Post-it note or a little, dragon out that you're throwing spells at and chasing around out there. Those types of things.
Right.
Those can move there.
Is there anything in the past, especially related to cloud computing, that sort of gives us a good lesson on how 5G should develop, or how operators should be looking?
Yeah,
at 5G?
think of when cloud was attempted by operators, 10, 11, 12 years ago, some of the first iterations, it was done in a totally different group than, say, the networking side of the house, right? So the purpose of the cloud was not to be the platform basis of LTE or to sit and help people that were doing new smartphones do new and interesting things, or help people that were doing those new applications on there. Right. And as you can imagine, if our cloud strategies back then were part of our LTE strategies, were part of our smartphone support strategies, were part of these types of application ecosystems that emerged. If all that was together, then the cloud effort within the telecom space would have been very different than the way that it sort of played out. And when we look at edge being the movement of that out and having a lot of those same types of accessible, easy to consume, capabilities in another part of the infrastructure, then we probably shouldn't, repeat that mistake of the past, So edge should be sort of the, tip of the spear around sort of a 5G type deployment. Edge should be the initial parts of putting things in place to enable these new types of applications and use cases and devices. But it also should have some things that are familiar to those of us, doing things today, and it should connect to parts of where we are. So, I think that that's sort of part where the current NFV transformations and what people want to do from SDN and what 5G is and what this and what that, Edge cannot be yet another investment, yet another infrastructure thing, yet another this, disconnected from those types of efforts. It has to be a bit more along the lines of, if everything's virtualized up anyway, and even 5G is going to be basically a containerized network function sitting on something like a Kubernetes cluster,
right.
There must be something else we can use that for other than just that. Right?
When why is it important? Deutsche Telekom, your Deutsche Telekom subsidiary. Why is it important that that you're out talking to and communicating with other operators about what's going on with at the edge of the 5G network?
Well, I mean, the first one's a bit of like, who's it for?
Right.
So we didn't end up with internet that belonged to only one internet provider.
Right.
We didn't. None of us could imagine having a mobile phone that only works on one mobile operator's network. Mm-hmm. Doesn't allow us to make phone calls to other people on other networks, and doesn't allow us to roam, and we sort of go around, right?
Sure.
And so when you just look at us making it so that somebody who's on existing smartphones or devices, or making new devices, and how they're going to start using these types of services that exist there to create and build, mm-hmm. That can't be single operator, single country, that doesn't sort of work with sort of other things like that, because it won't be adopted.
Okay. Makes sense. What's next for MobiledgeX in terms of the development as a company, and also its work with other operators?
First and foremost work right now is everything from a lead customer perspective, where we've gone and identified a number of services that we're going to bring live, this year and next year to support what they're doing. The great thing is that even in one particular country, it's a good idea for all the operators to work together and have those services available up as well. Mm-hmm. So in a lot of ways, it's pretty straightforward, and then work in a multi-operator way. So as we bring together, that side of the ecosystem, but then largely just deliver for who our actual customers are, that's really going to be our focus this year and next.
Okay. Jason Hoffman, thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.